Honestly, no joke at the beginning of this one because this was a damn powerful episode. Hello everybody, I hope you're all doing well and welcome to my review of Moon Knight Episode 5, Asylum. So we've hit the penultimate episode of the series, and normally this would be where I would be very frustrated if we got a backstory episode, because that's what this was. This was an episode where we got to learn the history and backstory of both Marc and Steven and a lot of the trauma and big life events that we've sort of been alluded to throughout the series so far, but are now getting explicitly shown in some revelations from that. And again, like I said, normally as a penultimate episode of a show, I would be very frustrated with this type of story, but this episode just worked on so many different levels. Not only just the way it was told and how it played with the ideas of Egyptian mythology and also just mental health that we've been dovetailing with this entire season, but also the revelations that get made specifically around Marc's past were honestly really difficult to watch, but in a really powerful way. And from having done a little bit more research on dissociative identity disorder surrounding this series to talk about a little bit, it seemed to me that the way they depicted how Steven's identity came to exist was very real, coming out of trauma in a way to escape a traumatic event. Honestly, I was really shocked by how powerful this episode was just as a whole. Break this down bit by bit. Tourette, the hippo goddess, was absolutely wonderful. The CGI in her was a little bit plasticky and weird at times, but I did really like the animation that they gave her. Like, she just had this, like, kind of girly, like, boppish sort of, like, feel to her. Like, boppish may be the wrong word, but she just had a little bit of life in the way she was animated. Like, I really just liked her sort of more girlish kind of feel to her, and I thought that was an interesting and unique take on that type of character. And then I also just really loved the weaving in of Egyptian mythology here, that they are in the Egyptian afterlife and they need to balance their hearts, and that their hearts feel like something's missing. And so I liked that sort of set the sort of stakes for them to have to go back through all of their past, that it was rooted in Egyptian mythology of the afterlife. And obviously we know they're going to escape in some way, shape, or form. At least one of them is going to escape some way, shape, or form in order to get back to the main plot of the series. I did like that for a large chunk of this, it was almost played straight, where it's just like, they're dead, and Marc and Steven now need to do the work to get to the afterlife. I actually kind of enjoyed that was the stakes for 75-80% of the episode. And then halfway through, we do get the part where we start seeing like Harrow sending souls that haven't been fully judged, unbalanced souls, into the Duat, and so having to watch them, and that sort of raises the stakes and ties it back into the larger story. And so I like that eventually it does get there. If it hadn't gotten there at any point in the show, I would have been upset. But I like that it remained mostly just like them having to explore their own souls through just this Egyptian mythos. I thought was really cool. And then the idea that they are in an asylum because that's the way their mind represents this world, I thought was also really, really, really cool. Just on many levels, it just felt very authentic and respectful. Again, I say as an outsider, so I can't necessarily say it's respectful, but it seemed to me to be respectful of all of that. And I thought it was just nice. I also will say the stuff with Harrow being their doctor was also really, really wonderful as well. I wasn't completely sold on it last episode, but here where he's sort of like jumping back and forth and it's sort of playing with this idea of like, oh, are they actually dead, or is this all just actually in their head in this asylum? It worked much better here for me because it provided like something different, a different counterbalance to the character to constantly remind us of this mental health issues that he's been dealing with his entire life, and it sort of played it off really well, and culminating in a really stark scene where Harrow sort of fake calls his mother and forces Steven to have to confront the fact that his mother is dead. Which brings us to the main plot of this. The story where we get to see Marc having a brother and Marc's brothers dying in the cave was really dark. It was a bit stereotypical. We've seen that sort of like drown in the cave sort of story before, but it was powerfully depicted. But even more powerfully depicted was the mother, Marc's mother, Wendy, having resentment at Marc for his death. There were a few times where I did feel like it was a bit over exaggerated, like the mother just like so tardily blaming him, and it felt a little bit overly cartoonish at times. But then I realized that this is a memory. This isn't necessarily a one-to-one reality, and this is how Mark would remember these moments and feeling them at that heightened reality and level. And it also allowed the emotion to get through in the few quick scenes that we got to see them. And so I liked that. But I also liked Steven at those moments where he saw this, like, why are you remembering like that? She wasn't like that, because we obviously saw Steven was calling his mother earlier on, which is sort of setting us up for the gut punch down the line in the episode. And all of these scenes just worked really well, leading up to the scene where we got to see the moment where Steven was born, essentially. And it was out of a way to protect himself from his mother. Again, reading what I learned from about dissociative identity disorder, that can be one of the ways that it happens, is using a personality to protect yourself from abuse or trauma. And it was really dark and sad to see them sort of both come to terms with it, and Steven coming to terms with it, and Steven coming to terms with his mother being dead. It was a hard scene. But the hardest scene, I think Oscar Isaacs portrayed it really well, is when he finds out that when we go to the scene where Steven is in the street to go and sit Shiva for his mother, and he can't do it. Probably because of all the abuse that she inflicted upon him, but also him obviously having feelings because it's his mother, and his father wanting him to come in as well. So it's got to have been a really difficult moment, and Oscar Isaacs plays it really well, and you see the anguish, and then the flip to Steven, and then him just immediately calling his mother, and the heartbreak in that was well acted, well portrayed, well written. On the whole, I was going to say after last week's episode that I was, kind of okay with the show so far. I was like, I don't love it, but I'm enjoying it, but it's kind of just gonna be like a fleeting thing for me. This episode, I think, brought it back. I don't think it's gonna save the entire series for me, and not that I think the series needs saving, but this will be the standout for the series by far for me. This was truly a fantastic weaving of unique storytelling, walking through memories, which you've seen before, but tying it into Egyptian mythology and telling a really powerful story with it. And then the end bit, too, where Steven falls off the edge of the ship and becomes part of the Duat, becomes the Sands, was heartbreaking as well, after finally having that a moment of emotional catharsis for them. It really broke my heart, and just having him, that be the thing that balances his heart and gets Mark into the field of reeds, was really hard. It was a hard moment at the end there, and really devastating. So the only other things that I have to think about is I'm surprised we didn't see the third personality here, so I'm wondering if we'll see the third personality show up next episode, because there's been allusions to a third personality, a more violent personality throughout here. Oh, we also got to see Khonshu taking advantage of Steven to get him to accept becoming Moon Knight, which I liked seeing that, and that Khonshu was very manipulative in that, and Steven calling that out rightly, I thought was really good. So we got to see that. But anyways, third personality, I'm curious to see if we're going to see that, or if they're saving that for possibly down the road in another time where Moon Knight will show up, and they're just alluding to it here. We'll see if that ends up getting Chekhov's gun shot off end here. And then I'm curious to see whether or not Steven will come back, because I think it would be a bit dark for Steven to end that way. But I mean, the emotional catharsis for the character is completed, so maybe not. But I would be sad if we didn't get to see him again. So hopefully he will come back, but we'll see if that's even possible. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Moon Knight. A really great episode overall. I was really struck by how powerful it was. So I'd love to hear all your thoughts down in the comments below. But beyond all of that, thank you so much, my friends, and don't forget to live long and prosper.